potentially this Manchester City side is actually getting better.
Yes, and I think if you remember Pep Guardiola coming into this studio actually saying, next season I'm going to be really tough on the players, I'm going to push them. We all said you can't get 100 points again, virtually impossible. You know, where'd you go from that? And that City would have to drop back. Not so much the other teams would have to catch them, they'd have to come back to the pack to give others a chance. Now it's actually looking that the others will have to maybe catch City. Now, where I'm talking about them actually improving, look at this graphic now. And let's not, before I even start on the graph, actually, the goal difference, 23 already, so much higher than everybody else's. But you look at the top, the goals this season compared to, so you got last season on the left, on the right this season, that's up. Expected goals, which we know now, is big chances created in games. They always create chances, but doing it more this season than last. Shots on targets up, touches in the opposition box, so they're actually arriving in the opposition box a lot more, and we know how much great football they played last season. Now, on the left side, that is the whole season. This is just over the first, sort of this early period of the game. Shot conversion is down, and I think people around the country, certainly managers of the top teams and players, will be hoping that goes down even further, really. But the big problem for opposition teams is this, goals conceded. So, Gary mentions a lot of the teams you played against, Barcelona teams, of can we get at that defence? You think about the Champions League finals. So we know how great they were defensively last season. So in terms of actually trying to beat them, you can't actually get near the goal. You can't actually get shots at target. Look at expected goals against, that's down as well. Shots to face them. Not even getting 2 shots on target a game. So this is how difficult it is now to actually beat this side. And I think the table, they're actually 2 points down on where they were, and that is the most important thing, points at the end of the season. But it just feels like City, every game feels so easy for them. And the teams up there, Chelsea, Liverpool, maybe Tottenham if they get the result tonight, they're sort of just hanging on by the fingernails to City at this moment.
Are you convinced?
Well, I think what the point Jamie makes at the end is an interesting one, because when I look at the City team that plays tonight with Bernardo Silva and David Silva in midfield, and the 2 centre-backs, Stones and Laporte, now there's no doubt there's great potential there with Stones and Laporte, but they've not built up the trust and the reliability that Otamendi and company have. You know, you really think of them as being a force over the last few years. So you think, that's what Tottenham were thinking, can we get at them? And that's what we thought when I was listening to Champions League final team talks, when they had Yaya Toure at centre-back in Rome in 2009, and Gerard Piqué, and you think Piqué obviously is a great defender, but he can't run. Yaya Toure is not a centre-back. Mascherano in the next Champions League final was playing as a centre-back, but you couldn't get at them. You never got one-on-one with them. You never could expose them. And I have to say that this Manchester City team, it is still too early in the season. What I would say is you're clouded sometimes by the games that you've watched. I've actually been at Wolves and I've been at Liverpool, which are the 2 games that they've dropped points in, which actually they've not shown vulnerabilities in those games, but they have shown that they can give you a chance. So I'll be interested to see what they do tonight. They've got Tottenham tonight, they've got United in a couple of weeks. It is still very early, but the signs are a little ominous.
That form is certainly piling the pressure on the rest of last season's top 6, Spurs included. And you'll have seen these quotes, perhaps, widely quoted today from Mauricio Pochettino. The club is not focused completely on winning titles. Today we spend a lot of energy on many things. One is to win games, but it is not the priority to win games. He says the frustration is massive. My feeling is the worst feeling for 4.5 years, even though it's the club's best ever start to the Premier League. To be a real contender, this team will need to improve. What do you make of that, Gary? And the timing of it as well.
The first thing I would say is that his personal feeling, it's the worst he's felt in 4.5 years, but it's the best start. And secondly, the priority of the club is not to win games. They're 2 very strong statements. I think he's always pedalled the party line well. We know what Tottenham are like as a club in terms of being quite pragmatic and conservative in terms of the spending. They do what they can. But he's always, to be fair, managed things well. He's always sort of, if you like, pushed away questions revolving around, why can't you spend money like the other clubs do? They're not even spending the money of Arsenal and Liverpool now, Tottenham. They're nowhere near. And actually, forget Chelsea, Manchester City and Manchester United. It feels to me like it could be... Look, Mauricio Pochettino is a brilliant, brilliant coach. We love him to bits. He was always going to, at some point, want to go and manage one of what would be the super clubs of Europe. And there are a couple at the moment who you can imagine in the next 12 months will be changing manager and they'll be looking at him and he'll know that they're looking at him. And his time's probably, has he taken it as far as he can? It feels to me like he's laid the first bricks of the foundations there of a movement away from the club and sort of started to sort of prepare the ground.
Has he taken them as far as they can? Can they actually get better?
Well, we just look at this graphic now. Now, Tottenham will not get better if this does not change, and we highlight them. Maybe on this show, maybe people think, you know, you just said we love him to bits. We've got a huge soft spot for Mauricio Pochettino. It's because of that. The job he has done it's unbelievable what he has done.
And what particularly are you talking about on that?
The money spent.
The points.
The points is another one. The money spent, what we're looking at now. To get Tottenham into the top 4 consistently, to overachieve budget. We're talking about spend here. Net spend compared to the others. Now, Tottenham, in 5-10 years' time, this team will break up, the manager will leave. And no one will be going back and looking at net spend and points and what they did. They'll just say, did they win anything? And at this moment, it's probably looking like the answer's going to be no. Whenever this ends, this group of team and this manager. No way should that manager and those players get that thrown at them. If anyone's going to get it thrown at them, why this team didn't win, it'd be Daniel Levy and the board at Tottenham. Because net spend of 29 million is not acceptable for one of the biggest clubs in the country. Teams who come up and get promoted have a bigger net spend than that. The fact Tottenham are where they are is because of that man there and those players. Now, Daniel Levy's done a great job in terms of training ground, infrastructure, stadium. But you've got the best Tottenham team and manager you've had for 30 years. And that is not enough if you want them to actually win something.
To blame Daniel, I think it's wrong to blame Daniel Levy. I think he's the best operator of a football club in the Premier League. I think he's the best. I think you can point towards Soriano at Manchester City, but I would say that Daniel Levy, he works within his means. When Mauricio Pochettino took that job from Southampton, he wasn't going into a club knowing he was going to get 400 million net spend. He was told the rules of the game. He knew the rules of the game when he walked into that football club. So, and at the moment, if we believe what we read in the newspapers about Tottenham's stadium costing another 150 million on top of what he thought it would cost, and you imagine you've got bank managers, you've got investors that are probably putting money in, saying, where's that 150 million pounds going to come from? I'll tell you what we'll do.
Back 4 years.
No,
it's not just now.
No, but they've known they're building that stadium for 4 years. They haven't just sort of popped it up in 10 minutes, that stadium.
Well, the quote we've had from Pochettino there, he's saying exactly what I'm saying. That's a dig at the board, and he's not getting enough help to actually challenge Guardiola, Klopp.
I don't think it's a dig at the board. I think it's a statement of fact. When you're 150 million pound down on a 400, 500 million pound stadium, he goes into the boardroom and asks about a left back playing in Holland or in Italy. The board will be saying, Rich, I'm really sorry. The money that we had earmarked, this £100 million, we've overspent on the construction. We haven't got the money.
Do you think, Jamie, it's relevant that he's saying it now, today, ahead of this game tonight?
Oh, yeah, because I think his big fear is he goes into a big game, he loses another big game, where people are saying the same things, he can't win trophies, he can't win the big games, but that is not acceptable. But what you're saying with Levy, that cannot be right, that a team like Tottenham... You're talking about
he knew the rules of the game before he went in. A football club will only spend the money that they have. They can't spend the money they haven't got. Many clubs have done that and fallen foul. So actually, to say, I think it's a situation.
Throughout his time have tried to do everything on the cheap, wages and money spent. There's no doubt about that. And I think that speaks volumes there. And the quote of Pochettino, and just about tonight, they're about what's gone on in the summer.